Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first of 3 virtual workshops on what we're calling Mindful Observation, presented as part of the Nasher's Art and Health series. I'm Curator of Education, Anna Smith, and our presenter today is Bonnie Pitman, who is Distinguished Scholar in Residence at the Edith O'Donnell Institute of Art History and Director of Art Brain Innovations for the Center for Brain Health at the University of Texas at Dallas. We hope that today's program will be an opportunity for you to disconnect from some of the chaos and anxiety that is so prevalent in our current situation, and to discover new ways to center yourself using some of the wonderful artworks from the Nasher collection. There will be moments during today's program where we will invite you to use your voices in the conversation, and you're welcome to contribute either by unmuting yourself or by adding comments in the chat, which I'll be moderating. We're so grateful that you took time out of your day to join us, and we hope you will enjoy this experience. And now, Bonnie, I'm going to turn things over to you.
Great. And of course, it didn't work. We're not advancing. Let me try one more thing. Sorry about that. Here we go. Well, as Anna said, I'm actually in the Nasher Center in the boardroom with the beautiful travertine marble behind me. Renzo Piano designed this exquisite building, and it was situated in with a garden around it. As we all know, the garden was designed by Peter Walker, and the Nasher is now open, and I really hope that over the weeks ahead that you come down and really can see these works of art up close. Today, we're really going to be focusing on mindful observation. And we're going to be exploring that. It's a very simple concept of living in the moment. And it's a state of active, open, intentional attention to works of art or to the environment that you live in. It can also be to the people that you're speaking with. The exciting thing about mindful observation is that it gives you yourself a chance to slow down and to really gain focus. This afternoon, we're going to be looking at 3 artists, all of whom are English, and they include Henry Moore, Barbara Hepworth, and Richard Long. And all of these works of art are currently on view at the Nasher. What is mindfulness? We hear about this all the time. It's a very broadly described practice that many people are following. Some people think of it as meditation, others think of it as mindfulness. One of the great teachers who I had a chance to work with extensively is called Jon Kabat-Zinn. And John's definition, which you're reading right there, that mindfulness is an awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. By doing this, it means that you're opening up all of your senses, all of your, almost cleansing your mind from all the distracting thoughts and attending in a new way to the world around you. It's different than meditation. Meditation is a practice that comes with study, and there are many different forms of meditation. One of them, in fact, is mindfulness meditation. And meditation as a practice uses specific techniques. And the great aspect of one of these techniques is mindfulness, which is when the mind is focused and calm. What are the benefits of mindfulness? Over the past 30 years, there have been so many studies about this at Harvard, Cornell, University of California, in Europe. Mindfulness is broadly studied because of its positive impact on our brains. What do I mean by that, you might say? Well, it improves and increases your attention and memory. There's a happiness quotient that goes up because you're putting aside the stress in your life and focusing on the good things. It becomes a way in which your cognitive flexibility, the ability to change ideas and to focus in, is developed. Very importantly, in this day and age, empathy and compassion towards yourself and towards the world around you are built up. For those of us like me, I got into this practice largely to deal with resilience because of my medical conditions. I needed a place to get renourished and to build strength. And through mindfulness meditation, I was able to do it. So you can see very quickly that your cognitive performance is rapidly improved, as well as the quality of life. Mindfulness also reduces different aspects of in our life that has caused stress and anxiety and memory loss. Studies have found very specifically that it has a positive impact on people who suffer from depression, who have psychological pain. It could be from post-traumatic stress. It could also be the people who suffer with physical pain. John Kabat-Zinn at the University of Massachusetts has done tremendous studies in this area and developed a whole practice that deals with the relief of pain. Part of it is you learn to accept it. You accept the pain and suffering in a new way and focus not on the positive things in your life, rather than on the negative things that are impacting you. So, am I making this up, or are there real studies? There are real studies. And one of my favorite ones is the fact that, I forgot one slide, sorry. One slide here. So did I make this up? No, neuroscience backs me up, and there are a tremendous number of studies that are out there. The brain that we have in our heads is plastic, and it can change over time. In fact, it can change throughout your lifetime. The neuroplasticity of our brain allows it to form new neural connections throughout our lives. We just have to work on it. You can't give up. You need to stay engaged. The neuroplasticity forms the basis of a lot of the positive aspects of mindfulness. Here's 2 MRI studies done by Sarah Lazar, who is a practitioner of meditation, but also a professor at Harvard. She's looking at the way our brains have been impacted after 30 days of meditation. The frontal lobe of this individual, when they started practicing, was pretty busy there. The frontal lobe is where it's the highly evolved part of our brain that deals with reasoning and planning and speech. It's where we articulate and make sense of the world around us. The frontal lobe is very important in cognitive functions. And then as you go back a little bit, you see the I say this always wrong, parietal lobe. And the parietal lobe is in the middle division, sort of between your 2 ears. And it is the part of your brain that is concerned with bodily sensations. It processes them so that you know how you experience the world and what you're bringing to it. It also helps you with a better understanding of time and space. And it introduces your visual system and begins to takes the input from the retina that comes in and begins to process it. The back of your brain, the occipital lobe, is the part of the human brain responsible for interpreting information from the eyes and all of our senses. It is here, the occipital lobe, which you can see, is a very important part of understanding the way in which we perceive the world. Not only that, the visual processing systems that happen there map out and are located in the parietal lobe. So they interact together to create a better understanding of the world around us. You can see the difference between an individual who's been meditating for 30 days in these 2 slides. After meditation, they are less active, which is a good thing. It means the ability to focus. There's a calming sensation that comes over the individual, which reduces the stress and anxiety. So these studies, these MRI studies, are rapidly being produced to verify the value of meditation. I can say all these words, but let's break it down to 2 simple concepts. Mindfulness and mindful meditation is really intention and attention. Intention. Intention is why we practice. It is what brought us to the practice and what's keeping us in the practice. I'm going to walk in the Nasher garden. I'm going to focus on the many ideas that of the beauty of the garden. It helps to prepare your mind and body for an activity or a meditation, and it reduces the stress and increases your joy. Attention. Well, I'm an art historian, and I've been focusing on the attention to works of art all my life. Sadly, the average person only looks at a work of art for 17 seconds. So Anna and I have spent our lifetime trying to get them to look at it for at least a minute. But that's many times the number of seconds that they would normally spend. Attention is what we practice. It is a way of engaging in that moment. It is knowing that our mind will wander. You will think of the to-do list or what I'm going to have to dinner while I'm talking today. I know that. All I ask is that you collect your thoughts and come back in the moment. It's sort of like a butterfly landing on a flower. There are the moments that it sits there still and beautiful, and then it flutters off. Your job in a mindfulness practice is to bring it back, to refocus your experience. Your experience in life, this is a wonderful quote, is not based on your life, but on what you pay attention to, said Greg Fretchett. It's a great reminder that that's how memories are developed. So, all good ideas, Bonnie, but how do I do this? Well, mindful observation. Here are some techniques. Slow down and be present. Breathe slowly. Focus on one thing. Choose an aspect of that object or that walk that you're on and really begin to explore it. Relax. Take some time to explore the world around you. Discover it with all your senses. Of course, in a museum, we ask you not to touch the works of art, but many of the artists really would prefer that you did. Connect your observations with yourself. Where have I seen this before? Have I ever experienced anything like this? And then the best and most fun part is consider the possibilities of the new. The importance of what we're talking about today is that I've worked with a lot of physicians and doctors over the past 6 years. And through that practice, I developed mindful observation. I also call it the power of observation. It's the way of focusing. And there are 4 steps that we're going to be using today: scanning, attending, connecting, and transforming. I'm not going to go over all the details because you can see them right there. But it is, we'll be using this framework as a way for you to approach the works of art, beginning with Henry Moore. Henry Moore, as I mentioned, was a wonderful English artist, probably one of the most famous ones in the 20th century. He grew up and studied at Leeds. He believed mostly that his sculptures belonged in the open air. He said, "I would rather have one of my sculptures be outdoors than inside the most beautiful of all buildings." And here the Nashers granted him his wish. This beautiful sculpture called Three Vertebra is situated at the back of the Nasher Sculpture Center garden. It's a glorious piece by the reflecting pool. I just want you to take a moment to scan it. See what the shapes are. Imagine what it would be like to walk up and to walk away. Henry Moore was inspired by natural forms, and he found objects such as stones and boulders, as well as shells to inspire his works of art. I'm wondering if you can begin to see any of those. Henry Moore, I'm going to ask you, because we're going to look at a video in just a second, to take a few minutes and really take a deep breath, 3 deep breaths. And then I'm going to change to the view of the Henry Moore that is from the video that we took. During this time, look at the work of art. Slowly, think about the forms and how they relate to one another, and consider what you would like to come back to the Nasher and see on your own. And the video Should be working. Yep. Take those breaths and gently enjoy this time. Okay, we're stuck. Sorry about that, technical difficulties. So I'm wondering if you discovered this point of view when you were scanning the Henry Moore sculpture, looking at it as a whole, but did you see this huge huge shape, almost like a vertebra sticking up from the back? And what the view is, as you look from that perspective, is all these conflicting forms bouncing back and forth, which you can't really understand. Then on the other side, you see a very similar view, but really from the back side, if you can imagine, from the other side here, and it looks so different. It looks almost like a gaping hole. And what could that be? This is the fun of exploring sculpture. As we continue to scan, I want you to begin now focusing in, and I decided to focus on my afternoon when I took these pictures on forms that filled in other forms, that created a form. And this is two views of the Henry Moore with these protruding organic shapes fitting into the large sculpture. Again, as you can see, here is the back of the sculpture that we were looking at 2 slides ago. Now, as we attend to it, in that close looking, what is really exciting for me is the process of connecting. Oh, I said to myself that afternoon, now I see these circles everywhere. And if I move, the circles begin to shift into ellipses, and the shape of the water and the garden change behind them. I can't believe this. Is this really the same sculpture? It's exactly the same view. I've just stood up, bent down, reached around. It's all there for you to discover. Connecting is that process of making observations and making new connections with them. Now we're transforming. What am I looking at? In one case, it looks like that oval that we saw earlier, but now it's so tiny and confined, whereas before it looked like it was reaching out into the water. What happened? I asked myself. Now I'm beginning to think, what is this form? Is it a bone? Is it a nose? I don't know. It's a lot of different things. It can be that's the fun of looking at art. You can imagine and innovate the shapes, and you can begin to rearrange them. When you go home, I would remind you to pick up some rocks and stones and play with them in your garden. I have found the principles of rhythm and form and the study of the natural world around you to be a great way when you transform your experience and personalize them to bring a work of art into a new dimension. As we leave the Henry Moore, we back up and look across the garden. This time when we took the picture, and that's one of the things as I go through the slides, you'll see more and more of, the time of day was high noon, and Anna and I were out there photographing it. Many of these other photographs were taken late in the afternoon, and the brilliance of the colors comes largely because the sun has lowered in the sky, and bronze is a reflective material. It is bouncing all the sunlight off right now, and so it looks very different in color and in relationship to the world around us. The Henry Moore that we looked at, Ray and Patsy Nasher went over in 1967 to see Henry Moore, and they commissioned him very shortly to do 3 vertebra, and that came back and was installed at the Nasher's home. You probably know this work very, very well if you've been to City Hall. 3 pieces of sculpture, the vertebrate is installed down there, but it's enormous. It's so big, you can hardly believe it as it sits in the middle, in front of the plaza of City Hall. And when you compare the size of this to the vertebra here okay, I'm sorry, that is my phone. I apologize. It is a powerful experience, partly because the scale is so monumental. And this one is situated in the plaza in front of this mammoth building. The next slide is really Henry Moore's reclining figure of a mother and child, which is at the Dallas Museum of Art on the second floor landing. It's made out of plaster, so it's an entirely different and much more fragile material. This work will never go outside. Importantly, many people look at that and can find the mother easily, but they have a hard time finding the child. The child is this little figure right there that's looking at her. My medical students have to shape their bodies into this form, and very quickly they begin to observe there's physically no way, as they're trying to lay on the ground, to have an arm that long and to get your torso in that particular shape. It's hysterical to watch when I make them do this, but it's part of the fun of transforming the experience of looking at a work of art so that they never forget it. Another piece at the Nasher, which I truly love, is often on view. It's a working model for ovals and points. And I love this beautiful section here in the middle where the tension is built up as you look through the work. It's powerful and exciting to have these moments, to see a work of art in different sizes and scale, see a work of art by an artist in different sizes and scale. Our last view of Henry Moore, as we walk away and see it in its natural landscape, through the weeping willows of the Nasher. A glorious view as you begin to, many times it's hard to get one because streetcars are going by, but it's really a glorious setting for this great sculpture. Barbara Hepworth, another English sculptor, is probably the most important artist one of the most important artists being in the 21st century. What sadly is said often is that she, as a woman, received international fame. Today, we would find that offensive, but in fact, during her time, it was a great accolade, and she was very proud of it because life was very different for women, and especially for women sculptors. Her art exemplifies modernism, and she studied with Henry Moore. And they worked together, and her husband of a number of years was Ben Nicholson, who also used abstract forms in his art. As we begin to look at Barbara Hepworth's squares and 2 circles out in the garden, again situated in the reflecting pond, as we begin to walk up to it, we begin to look at this monumental, almost a monolith standing in the garden and wondering what it is. The surprise is that when this work was purchased in 1968, it was one of the Nasher's very earliest acquisitions in modernist art. As you change your point of view and walk around it, you begin to see things in new ways. There are many ways to approach a work of art. Some people want a lot of information about the artists, the times they lived in, the influences that they had. Other people walk up to something abstract like this and say, I don't understand it, and walk away. Another group of people will approach it and be mesmerized because they see not only circles and squares. Well, actually, are these squares? We're going to come back to this in just a moment. So quickly, we're going to use our tools of scanning, attending, connecting, and transforming. And I'm going to show you another video, this time of Barbara Hepworth's work. We'll pause and take our 3 breaths, and I'll start the video. Okay. Sorry. It worked in rehearsal. Okay, I'm taking a deep breath and Lindsay's going to come and help me. Just pretend we're all focusing on this work. Okay, you want to get down there? Mm-hmm. I don't know. Well, let's come back and we'll see. We'll give it one more chance and then it worked in rehearsal.
It says it's playing.
It says it's playing? No, it's not playing. Okay. All right. Well, too bad, because it's a beautiful, beautiful video. When we, maybe we can fix it in the final version, which is going to be, this is being taped and we can insert it at the end or something, Anna. My apologies. So remember I said it's a circle and 2 squares? Well, as we first approached the beautiful Barbara Hepworth, we realized that it's not 2 squares. In fact, those are rectangles. Actually, not 2 rectangles, but 3. And what other forms are there? Then when you go around, and this is the great discovery, if you get from the back, you see all of a sudden the 2 squares, well, roughly 2 squares, and the ovals going through them. It's a powerful moment to realize that the artist is playing tricks on you and encourage you to come closer and get engaged with the works of art in her artwork. I love the Barbara Hepworth because it's actually looks so simple, but it's an immensely complex work of art. So we focused on scanning and seeing the differences between the squares and the circles depending on where we stand. Now we're going to attend to the Hepworth. Let's look through the different circles. Actually, one looks more like a hole, just a simple hole, and you see the weeping willows behind it. We're focusing closely and thoroughly and noticing the reflections in the shape of the circle. The other one, if I stand in the back of it from the square side, all of a sudden reveals itself as a portal. Its depth is really magnificent, and that's what I'm so sad you're missing in the video, because it really worked well. You sort of zoom in and end up looking down through the portal. The distinctive hollowed out circles the artist used many times in her works of art. It was a way for her to break up these large monoliths in bronze and allow you to peek through them to see the world in new ways. The apertures frame what you're looking at, and the frame is there. But as you move your body back and forth, your view changes. I love this piece of views of the afternoon, late afternoon, looking at the Hepworth. And now that very same circle that we were looking at suddenly becomes an ellipse or a different form. And over on this side, you can see the 2 circles together fighting for different views of the Nasher garden. Connecting is when you begin to look at these ideas and realize that a simple shape of a circle can affect your thinking and viewing in different ways. It's giving you new ideas and forcing you to make new connections. It's just taking that moment to stop, look, and discover. This is another day at the Nasher, looking at those same circles. You can tell I got fascinated by them, and it's one of my favorite works because here I began to think about the sky, the reflection of the sky on the inside. And here, when you look up through it, the bright Texas blue sky changes dramatically the shape of the circle. An exciting work all around, and there's so many ways to view it. The last thing I wanted to point out and invite you to look at carefully is looking through the portal down at the beautiful Nasher Sculpture Center at the end of the pavilion at the end of the garden. But so often we just look at the outside of the sculpture. I began to really have fun looking at the subtle textures and shapes and the rapid movement that she experienced applying the patina. It almost looks like waves on water or in the sky. It has so much motion and shape And that is because it's the hand of the artist that you can see. Barbara Hepworth, in this transforming moment, is the point at which I ended up writing some poems about this work of art. When you transform your experience with a work of art, you want to use all of your senses. One day, I recorded all the sounds that I heard when I was quietly looking at the work. Another day, it was obviously taking photographs of the circle. And the last day I went up to it, I wrote a short poem. I'm too embarrassed to read it to you, but transforming involves your senses in new ways and causes your creativity to come out. It's part of mindfulness and probably one of the most fun aspects of it. There are Barbara Hepworths over at the Dallas Museum of Art, and here's one that's in the sculpture garden right now. And you can see, depending on your view, how effective the voids and the openings are. On view on the second floor is this magnificent contrapuntal forms that made out of marble, and they are so glorious in the sense that they shimmer and the silken surface of her work. She was a great master working in marble. As we leave Barbara Hepworth, we can enjoy seeing how perfectly set it is the perfect setting it has placed in the Nasher Sculpture Garden amid the trees and the landscape. And right from this particular angle, you see a very different sculpture, which one day I hope we will explore by de Kooning. And it provides a wonderful contrast between the geometry and the steadiness and the monumentality of her forms and the constant movement that you see in de Kooning. Our last artist this afternoon is Richard Long, another favorite of many of ours. He is a very well-known English sculptor who is still creating actively today. He is on the vanguard of conceptual art. So what is that? Well, we'll learn more. Conceptual art is really where you have to use your imagination to truly understand things. Long works have ideas of sculpture that also invite you to be part of the performance of that piece. His first works as a young artist were when he started making long pathways out in the gardens in the hills of England. For the Nashers, he created this beautiful midsummer circle. And the collection of the Nasher, and this is its original installation here at the Nasher's home in the late in the 60s when they bought, no, in the 70s when they bought it. Richard Long's inspirations, as I said, come from nature. He loved that very different views that he could see, and how simple forms and shapes and simple rocks and pebbles and pieces of stone could become works of art. He considered his walks a sculpture, he considered his walks as part of his sculpture. I want to make you slow down, and I want you to see in different ways. What he really intended for the Nasher's midsummer circles was never to be out of doors. He wanted it installed inside, where you can see it right now at the Nasher Sculpture Center in their main gallery. He wanted the stones to stay away from the natural environment and to become the focus of your observation as they rest on the floor. Its diameter is 17 feet, so it takes a while to walk around and really view it. Prepare yourself for the next click, which is hopefully the working video, but take a few breaths and center yourself as we begin to try this wonderful experience of looking at the Richard Long. Yes, see, miracles happen. As you're scanning the piece, begin to look at what you see. Count up the circles, which is easy, but then begin to think about their relationship one unto the other. Now we're going to change our perspective. And this is really an important part of looking at sculptures. Getting down close to the slate. Examining the difference between the two. From my perspective, we're moving a bit too fast, but that's what we wanted to do, is just begin to invite you to see the striations, the shapes, the forms, the angularity of these pieces of slate. It's like it's like a walking meditation. If you come to the Nasher, I encourage you to just truly enjoy it. Make the full circumference actually 2 or 3 times. It's here we go. It's a beautiful work. This is the same object photographed at a different time of day on a cold, rainy day that we had about a week ago. And the sculpture goes from these glimmering light grays to this dark, forceful form. The shadows are intense and the slate looks very different. Still scanning, you can see the forms, and they begin at this angle. You can hardly make out the outer form of the 3 circles. You might ask yourself, are there really 3? Yes, there are, but form and shape change. One thing about my work, Richard Long said, is all of the different ways that it can be seen in the world. He really wants you to experience things in different ways. The focus of a walk is about noticing and trying to find a new way to understand the world around you. Attending, I want you to look at this and pick a very specific 2 or 3 pieces of slate or a circle that you want to focus in on. Attending is looking closely and thoroughly, staying in the moment and reflecting, discovering and selecting the areas that you want to focus on. These, each slab that he has picked here is an individual slab that Long himself selected to be in this piece. As we get up close to the beautiful slate pieces, you begin to notice how very different they are. In this case, we're bending down and looking at the edges of the slate. They change in color and in shape and in form. They're irregular, they're ragged, they're brutal in some cases. This is when we start to connect the ideas that we have about the work of art to ideas that we have about the world around us. Where do I see stones like this? Some very symmetrically finished and others roughly hewn. Maybe you have a wall made out of stone or a fireplace, and you can begin to imagine the tremendous differences in the works. In connecting, the idea is to be processing the information and considering new ideas. I'm wondering where the slate came from in England. Is there more of it? Did he take it all? The wonderful thing about this is then all of a sudden you begin to see individual patterns of the slate. Some are white and some are totally gray. The comparing and contrasting images about the slate give us a new perspective. One that allows us to pause for a moment and think about memorable things like hikes we've been on, and maybe you can consider that too. Another Richard Long exists just a few blocks away from the Nasher Sculpture Garden in the lobby of the KPMG building. And here you can see this monumental work with Richard Long and the owner, Craig Hall, the developer, greet you with all of its energy. It's like an exploding sun, and that's certainly one of the many metaphors that you can think about with midsummer circles. It certainly is one of those works of art that inspires new ideas. Is it a sun? Is it a moon? Is it a sacred shape? Circles have countless meanings to all of us, and in the history of world art and religion. Richard Long, I think, tried something new, just as you can try. That is to go out and take a work of art like you see here and begin to create your own in your garden. We're coming to the end of mindful observation, and I just want to review a few important things. First of all, the health benefits. Come to the Nasher as a place of healing, as a place of relaxing and focusing your ideas and your energy. Happily, it's one of the calmest, most beautiful places in our city, and it is and you are all welcome to enjoy it. The health benefits that I mentioned earlier are important to consider as we look at the importance of mindful observation and mindfulness. It's the cultivation of the moment by moment awareness of our surroundings and of works of art. Remember, it increases your attention and your focus. It also has a cognitive impact on your ability to consider flexible new ideas, and your brain gets stronger and grows more. It gives you a sense of calm and of new experiences. And the cognitive flexibility that comes with mindfulness is something to behold. The techniques, again, are very simple. Slow down. Stay in the moment. Breathe. Pause. Focus on one thing. Choose an aspect and explore it. Relax. Take time. Discover something with all of your senses. Walk around, stand on your toes, listen to those sounds in the environment. Connect your observations to yourself and consider the possibilities of what you might do with it if you were the artist. How would you know when it was done? Is always a question I ask. How do they know when that work is complete? It's an important question and one of the great mysteries of art. Again, just so that you practice them over the week ahead, remember to scan, look quickly, attend with great focus, intentionally, and then connect, seeking new information and a new process of discovering and understanding what you're experiencing. Then transform, write a poem, take photographs, have a conversation with someone. They're all available to you, but that engaging in a personal response will create a deeper memory about the work of art. Mindfulness-based training, as I said earlier, there are so many ways to do it, and you just simply need to go Google it online. Two of my favorite teachers are John Kabat-Zinn and Sharon Salzberg. A great quote by John Berger, one of the art historians that many of us study, is that we only see what we look at. To look is an act of choice. As a result of this act, which we see is brought within our reach, to touch something is to stimulate oneself in relation to it. We never look at one thing. We're always looking at the relationship between things and selves. It's an active process, and it's wonderful to be part of it. As we close today and leave the beautiful Nasher Sculpture Garden, I want to invite you to remember the importance of the science that backs up this slow-looking process. It's a gift to you that we can give to you at the Nasher. Based on decades of research, the experiences are yours to have and to enjoy. The next week, we're going to be focusing on nurturing relationships and the importance that it plays in well-being in your life. As we deal with loneliness as a major factor in society today, engaging in relationships in meaningful ways can help your mental health and can create better aspects of compassion and kindness. The insight of having deep understandings of how to look and how to change the world around you are yours to have. It's an easy opening to enjoy experiences today that you've never had before and in new ways. So I want to invite all of you to ask questions of me, and very importantly, to come to the Nasher and experience these beautiful works of art. If you want to get in touch with me, I'll just put this slide up for a few minutes and then we'll go back to the Nasher slide in case you want to reach out and see my work. You can email me at UT-Dallas, or if you want to, follow me on Instagram. There are a lot of new photos of my new experiences with the Nasher. So we'll go back and I'll take questions, Anna.
Yes, so if anyone has a observation or question they'd like to share, you're welcome to do so either in the chat or by unmuting yourself. And in just a moment too, we're gonna try to play you that Hepworth video from a different computer.
Yes, thank you. I'm so
See if
sorry.
we can trick the technology gods. Hi, Susan.
I have a question.
Hi.
Sure. Hey, Susan.
Hi, everyone. When you were showing the slide, Bonnie, it was so interesting about the brain before and after mindfulness.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that some more? In particular, I was really struck by the color differences. But also, were there differences in the size of the different parts of the brain that you were discussing?
Yes. There are many MRI studies, and if you go online and just look at MRIs of mindfulness, you'll see dozens of them. In that particular slide, what you're looking at is the color represented high activity in your brain. And probably, yes, the different colors mean different things, but I'm not a neuroscientist, so I can't really explain that in detail. But the intention was to give you a quick overview and for you to see that when you're just living your normal day and you're working and you're engaging in life around you, what happens is that you are, your mind is active. In fact, there are thousands of inputs visually every second. And so all of that has to be processed. Your eyes are the window to your brain. And so many images are processed. That's the way we navigate the world around us, is for most of us who have to use sight is our primary sense. And it is actually the activity of your brain that's taken up by processing images and the visual world, the whole visual cortex is almost 50% of the brain, because it goes to the hippocampus, it goes to the thalamus, and it comes up to the prefrontal cortex. It keeps taking in the data through your retina in the back of your brain and then inputting it as we come out. Mindfulness quiets the brain and gives it more focus. And that's why memories are increased, stress is reduced, and the quality of life goes up, as well as your cognitive flexibility. Was that helpful, Susan?
Yes, thank you. I haven't actually looked into any of those before. So it was very, very striking photograph, that's for sure.
It's quite impressive out there if you look at the variations of the MRIs that have been done.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep. Anybody else? I'm interested in learning from you. How helpful was this afternoon for you? What did you get out of it?
Hey, Bonnie.
Yes. Hey, Paul.
Hey, it was a great talk. Thank you. And you're right. The Nasher is a fantastic place to be.
Right.
The thing that caught my mind, and maybe many of you are thinking about, is, you know, when I go outside now, I feel like I'm paying attention to the insects, birds, and lizards. And this might be a combination of mindfulness and, you know, COVID. And I'm just curious if your attention or your observation has changed as a result of COVID.
Yeah, I'm in the highest risk category of people. So to say I've been confined is an understatement. And just like you said, Paul, when I go outside, I sometimes am bowled over by all the sensory input, you know, the light, the actual physical light beaming down on me because Texas skies are so brilliant. And very importantly, all of the detail that comes in. And after being in my house, which is a confined space, which I'm very familiar with for days and days and days, it's almost like being in overload. I saw a friend this afternoon as I was getting ready for the lecture, who I talked to every week several times on Zoom, but to actually physically see his body, we didn't hug, but it was so exciting. And that comes because our sensory experiences are open up. And those of you who are lucky enough to go out and experience the world, I really envy you, because that is, the opportunity today is giving you tools to enjoy that experience even more. So yeah, COVID's had a tremendous effect on my life and on my experiences in my world. And that's what I post on my Instagram posts. Thank you. That was a great question, Paul.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Bonnie, this is Cynthia. I have just relaxed so much simply looking at these beautiful works of art and listening to you. I just felt like I'm sort of in a lullaby as I listen. And it reminded me also of we walk mornings in our park most mornings, and we had done that before, but there's something about the way our minds are open. In a way, there's so much going on, but in a way, there's not. And it has been fascinating to me watching 6 months now of going every day from spring to summer to hot white summer to rain and fall, and thinking that I'm still doing this. I've never experienced that before.
Right.
And it's magnificent. And it's like, to me, looking at a work of art that's slowly and walking around. Even the moon, I watched it go from full to nothing to night in my life every night.
Well, you're making a great point, Cynthia, which is, I think, one of the benefits of this lockdown, isolation, whatever you want to call it, that has, many people could say it desensitized me. I don't think that's true. I think it's heightened people's awareness and use of their senses, sometimes in a very positive way, which you're describing. And sadly, in other cases, it's too much enclosure. But the gift of mindfulness and mindful observation is that you become a full participant. And exactly what you said, to see the cycles of a month or the cycles of a season, one thing I'd invite you to do is take a photograph, every week, of the same tree or the same bush or whatever you like, and see how it changes tremendously beginning in the fall to the spring. It will really capture your imagination. So you have the tools to do it, just enjoy. Great observation.
Thank you.
Well, do we want to try to see if we can get the Hepworth video to play?
Yes. Oh, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Because it is really beautiful.
It's very beautiful.
I think Lindsay, who you can't see, is going to try to load that up.
Just stay with us for a moment. Okay, here we go. I'm not touching anything, so it's it's just one of those simple technical, many of us have been there, technical issues. Great, there you go. Now we're experiencing it. I just love how this changes, how the circle changes into so many different shapes, and how the sun changes the piece. Well, great. I've had a fun afternoon with you, and I hope you'll come back next week and join Anna and myself for our next mindful observation. As I mentioned, we're going to be focusing on nourishing relationships, seeing 3 very different works of art. One by Brancusi, The Great Kiss, a wonderful portrait of us in a way of one of the last wife of Picasso, whom he truly loved and was like a mentor, and then the Richard Serra. You might wonder how that got into the mix, but we'll explore that next week when we're together. Anna, thank you very much for the videos and the opportunity to do this, and I'll let you close the afternoon out.
Bonnie, thanks so much. And thank you all for spending an afternoon with us. I hope, I saw some lovely comments, and I hope that for many of you, this was an opportunity to escape from a very unusual and stressful time that we're all experiencing. And if anyone has any questions about visiting the Nasher or registering for upcoming programs or anything like that, you can email me. It's just asmith@nashersculpturecenter.org. And we are so glad you could join us and hope to see you again soon.